Hi, everybody. Hey, Bob. How you doing?
Very well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. So now we're here in the US. Naspers is not an American company. So I think maybe we should start out with you giving us the elevator pitch for Naspers, because I'm not sure how many people know who you guys are.
No, absolutely. So we're actually both investor in many consumer internet businesses around the world, and we're also an operator. So we have about 20,000 employees in the group. We invest in consumer internet models that are high growth, that typically would address a very fundamental societal need and has a lot of runway for growth. And we do that in the segments that we just heard about. So we're pretty big in food delivery, probably one of the biggest investors in food delivery around the globe. We're very large in fintech, particularly in enabling online payments in growth markets, where India is probably our most important market. And then we are the owners of the largest classifieds group in the world with OLX.
Right. And you guys had a major event in the last several weeks, which was Prosus. Prosus, do you want to tell us about what happened there?
Absolutely, yeah. So we took all our international consumer internet assets and we listed them on the Euronext exchange in Europe. That was
basically hived them off of the South African company, right?
Yeah, we listed them separately,
yeah.
And we placed a good chunk of those shares with our existing shareholders. So we didn't issue new shares. We didn't do a capital raise,
right?
But we issued those shares to our shareholders. It's been about $120 billion market cap company, which is the first time that Europe has a consumer internet company of that size, which is an exciting event.
So why did you decide to do that in Amsterdam?
So there were
not the US?
Yeah, there were a few really good reasons for it. So first of all, it is a very large exchange, about 4 trillion in overall market cap. So we knew we could have a lot of runway to growth from there. We think we can double the value of the company in the next few years, and we really needed a place where we could find that space, and Euronext has that. A few other things that were working really well for us. So we have our global AI team sits in Amsterdam. I sit in Amsterdam. Our mobile engineering, mobile marketing team sit in Amsterdam. So you have a great presence there. We found it also a great place to attract global talent. We even get great people from San Fran to move there. So we like the place a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think Amsterdam has had an interesting evolution. You've got companies like Adyen there and so on. So it's had much more attention, I think.
Yeah, it's become much more of a tech hub in Europe. And it's also an easy place for people to settle. Now there is this sort of critical mass of great talent, engineering talent. So
yeah. Now, the important thing about Prosus, which you didn't mention at all, is the fact that it's got your holdings in Tencent, which is, of course, the parent of WeChat and a bunch of other things. Now, you guys are holding on to all that. Now, you said it's not raising money, but are you planning to, in the future, raise money through Prosus in any way?
So we'll see how we go. I think one of the things that was really important for us is to attract a new set of investors to the group, right? So we've been traditionally, even though we are sort of 100% consumer internet, if you look at our revenue base, we've had a lot of emerging market-focused investors in the company, which we are very excited about, but maybe a bit less represented on the tech side.
Yeah.
And that was very, very important for us to do. And also, since it's such a rare listing of that size in consumer tech in Europe, we're getting a lot of attention.
So it is a massive business, Naspers. It's, either giving you a mic, you're a little too quiet. Maybe, yeah. Thank you.
Try this.
Oh yeah, there we go. So yeah, it's a massive business. It's got Tencent and lots of other things inside it. Based out of Amsterdam. How much of an issue is it that you don't really have any profile in the US? Is that a big deal for the company? Do you want that to change? Because a lot of your businesses are actually not in the US. They're in emerging markets. They're in Asia, and so on.
Yeah, so we've been historically, if you look at what the company's been doing, we're very much a growth company, right? So currently our organic growth is around the 30% mark. In some of the segments in food, it's growing more than 50%. And growth often has led us to go to growth markets.
Yeah.
But we're not a growth markets per se company. So we have invested in the US actually quite a bit in the last few years in a company called Letgo.
Yep.
So that's enabling people to use their mobile phones to buy and sell secondhand.
It's like an eBay disruptor.
Yeah, it is actually a new way, simpler way for people to sell things they don't need anymore. Basically, the guy who founded it, Alec Oxenford, is a great guy. He has as his mission in life to make selling something as easy as throwing it away. So then we invested I think around $500 million in the US in that platform. We also have a ventures presence here in San Francisco, actually just a few streets down the road, that looks at newer, earlier stage companies, and particularly that have a global potential. Because I think what we really bring, we operate in 90 countries. I spent 200 days a year on the road seeing the business in that country. And I think when you are a young company out here that has global potential, then I think we're the right kind of partner.
Right. Does that mean that you think you might try to increase your presence in the US over time, or
So
do
we
more
found
investing here and so on?
We found some amazing early stage companies that we've invested in here. A company like Honor, for example, also out of the US, that is basically digitizing how people deal with elderly people who need care.
Right.
And doing that in a step change way. So I think we've seen exceptional companies come out of here, and we love it when they have a business model that addresses something that really would apply to the entire world.
Yeah. You were saying you've got a lot of investments in food. You've got also tons of fintech that you're doing. And maybe if we could put that all into the bigger basket of commerce. Why did you guys decide to focus on that area? Because if I could extrapolate from all of that, I would say it's sort of around digital commerce. Why?
So we think commerce is probably, in terms of addressable market, one of the largest opportunities out there. And I think there's another key criterion in there for us is we look for big consumer needs as one of the things we do. So commerce is a logical one, and food, I guess, is part of commerce. And also we have had, I think, most of our experience on the consumer side, right? We've been, as a company, around for a long time. We've always built consumer businesses that are driven by technology. So this is where our core expertise is, and I think also where a very large part of the opportunity lies.
Okay. In that area, one thing that you've done a little bit in, you've dabbled in it, but you haven't done so much, but I'd be curious to hear what your opinion is on it. Where are you on cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin and all of the rest?
Yeah, we've done 3 investments in crypto so far. We are in...
but on a smaller side.
They're all relatively small.
Yeah.
So I think we are tremendously excited about what crypto can do for the world. And I think I would hope we're seeing sort of step one of 1,000 steps going forward. I hope really we're 1% or less into what it can be. And I do think there's, in terms of actual practical applications that take people's fundamental need and improve them, I think there's a way to go. I think we've seen a lot. I think the potential is high, but I think it's still very early days. Do
you think there's a lot of speculation and conning going on in crypto at this point?
Well, I think it's a mix, right?
Do.
I think in terms of the ICOs, I think there's been a tremendous amount of mischief, and we've stayed relatively far away from it. There's also some really valuable ideas that are looking for backing, so you really have to be damn careful.
What do you think of things like Facebook's Libra project?
So we're one of the people who are supporting Libra.
Yeah, I know.
So one of the reasons that we got excited about it, we do a lot of work in growth markets, right? Where actually for people to transfer value, and it goes with incredibly high transaction cost, and there's typically a lot of friction and there's a lot of uncertainty there. So I think if you think what Libra could be, it would be a tremendous asset for people, particularly in those markets who don't have the benefit of a stable currency and low transaction fees. Yeah. So we think it can do a lot of good for the world, and we also think that it will be successful if many people support it, and that's why we were attracted to support Libra, and we have good hopes for it. I know there's a ton of discussion around the regulatory aspects of it, and that will need to be worked through.
Yeah, I mean it's been really rocky for them so far, I think, because like. They did launch with a lot of names attached to it, but you keep hearing about people threatening to pull out. I think the latest, I read a rumor that PayPal is apparently looking to not be involved anymore. I mean, is there something that could lead you to making that kind of a choice too? Or are you committed for the
No, I think the reasons why we started supporting it still hold, right?
Okay.
So I think there's a number of issues that need to be worked through, but I think what it can really bring huge benefit to people, particularly in the markets we know and care about. And I think we see that if we have the right players behind it, it could be a great thing to build. Okay,
fair enough. Okay, I'm going to switch to one of the other things that you're doing in fintech, not fintechs as such, but in commerce, which is all of that food delivery and everything. You're a big player in that in certain parts of the world. We're going to have Postmates on later today, and I think it's a really interesting area, but it's making a lot of losses right now. It's a tough one to do as a business longer term. How do you think it's going to switch over into being a profitable industry? It's definitely popular, it definitely is growing, but it's definitely losing money. So what do you think?
Yeah, if you look at, we deployed about $5 billion in online food delivery, so we hope it's going to work out. We obviously think it's going to work out. One of the things we spend a lot of time on when we go invest in is it a fundamental consumer need? And I think people spend a lot of time and money on food, and technology has actually played a relatively small role, I say, in the whole food delivery and food preparation space. So we know that technology can do a lot over time. And what we then spend a lot of time is like, do we understand the business? Are the fundamentals of the business model healthy? And I think in food delivery they are. So we had, for example, we started investing in food delivery almost a decade ago in Brazil. And we invested in a company called iFood that was actually profitable a year ago. We saw the unit economics were great, but we thought this business opportunity is actually much bigger than we thought. So it's probably, from here, it's probably a 20x opportunity in terms of growth. And other people are spending against that as well. So you'll see, I think you'll see losses, you see cash consumption because the overall endpoint is so exciting. So we're quite comfortable we're going to get there.
Yeah, okay. But generally speaking, though, as an investor, I mean, you guys are an operator, but you're also very much an investor. So you take stakes in these companies. But a lot of them are still in this wider area of delivery and so on. It's, you know, they're still in the black or in the red. How much of an issue is that for you as an investor? And how willing are you to stay in the companies while they're loss-making longer term? Will you stay until they're profitable, or just until you can sell your stake to someone higher? Or?
No, in many cases. So one of the things that is typical for us, we are a long-term investor. We're not a fund, right? So we have no exit horizon. If we like an investment, we can stick with it for 20 years, as we have done with Tencent, for example. So we have a long-term horizon, so we don't need to get out, and that's important for us. We do need to have a lot of confidence that the business model works, and then we don't mind, as long as we see progress, that it consumes cash for a while. For example, our classifieds business, and we started investing in it, I think it's about 8 or 9 years ago, and they made operating losses for 7 years. They turned profitable last year. Right. And everybody says it's a great business. Well, we told you it was a great business.
Right. But it's how about, you mentioned Tencent, which is, I'm glad you did. You guys are their biggest shareholder now, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. We have 31% of Tencent shares.
That's an amazing thing to have. Now, of course, you guys amassed that when it was a much smaller business than it is now. But it turned out to be a huge hit for you guys. But you don't really have much of an involvement with the company operationally, do you?
So we have 2 board seats
yes.
At Tencent, and we're actually very well connected, and we've been invested for 20 years. And I must say that if you look at the opportunity that the Chinese internet has because of the sheer size, obviously almost 1 billion internet users, the digitalization of the Chinese economy, I think, is at a level that the rest of the world needs to catch up on, and is not even close to. And I think the level of innovation we see there as well, it's just a fantastic opportunity. And within that space, I think Tencent has the most amazing leadership team. A very humble, innovative, hungry, fantastic team.
Do you have much of a say when they come up in controversial ways? So, for example, you know, there's questions over censorship in China, and what role, you know, Tencent, of course, owns WeChat, amongst other things. Do you have any involvement on that front when they have to face those sorts of questions, both in the international arena and in China itself?
No, I think the broader question is, and it's really important question around how we operate. So we are a company that empowers local entrepreneurs to run their business, right? We do that in China. We're a shareholder. We're an active, engaged shareholder with close ties. But the companies that we have are operated by locals. So if you take India, for example, in the food delivery business that you mentioned earlier, we've invested behind a tremendous entrepreneur. It's called Harsha. He runs the business. He deals with the specific local issues that need to be dealt with. And we operate in 90 countries. We really have to do it that way. Yeah.
So you don't try to get too involved in the.
No, we get involved in the strategy, but not in the local components of the business.
Okay. With Tencent. I know that you have a fairly large stake in the company. Do you have plans on changing that in any way, either growing it, trying to grow it anymore, or to reduce it and use some of the proceeds for something else? What's your sort of long-term strategy with it?
Yeah, we are really excited about the further growth potential of Tencent. So if I mentioned before, the overall market, I think, is the most attractive internet market in the world. And within that, I think Tencent has a tremendous position in terms of WeChat, but also if you look at the video business, if you look at the payments business, it just has a tremendous further runway from here. And we're really excited to be able to be there. So we want to see that further growth happen, and we're very proud to be part of it.
So would I take that to mean, would we understand that as you want to stay where you are? You don't want to grow it or reduce it in any way?
No, we've actually said we wouldn't reduce it in the near future.
Okay.
And given the future opportunity, we love it.
Do you think you only have an opportunity to increase your stake in it as well, or?
It's a good question. I think if I look at what we try to do, we're a growth company. We want to invest in consumer internet in the places in the world where there's most to be gained, in our view. And we might be wrong, but I think China has been a focus for us for many years. I think if you look at where we spend a lot of our money in the last few years, we've been very active in India, for example. Yeah. And we spend probably most of our free capital in the last few years in India because it's been such a tremendous leap from only, say, 10, 15 million internet users 8 years ago to almost 500 million now. Yeah. And we're looking for those breakout opportunities. So that's where we'll probably spend most of our capital going forward. Okay.
Do you think that you may ever find an opportunity like Tencent again? I mean, you must wake up every day and ask that. What's the next Tencent?
Yeah,
Or do you think that we've passed that period? We're not going to find that kind of high growth company anymore in the tech world?
So we looked a little bit at how Tencent stacks up versus other investments that others have done, not so much ourselves, but I think we believe it's probably the best internet investment that anybody has ever done. So everybody is looking for the next Tencent.
Yeah, I mean, Softbank had Alibaba. Softbank's very Naspers-like company, of course.
Yeah, no, so I think if you look at some of the companies in our portfolio, I think there's tremendous growth opportunity. Whether it will be as great as Tencent, who knows? Yeah. I think on our current e-commerce portfolio, we've managed to deliver an annual return of about 20%, which is well above market. If we keep doing that, I think we should be pretty happy.
Okay, I have just a couple of minutes, and I mentioned SoftBank for a reason. You guys have been compared to them before. You're somewhat similar. You're outside of the places that you're investing. You have a large sum of money. You have an engine behind you, which is these fantastic investments out of China. How do you see their investment strategy? They've done really interesting things with the Vision Fund. Some would say very controversial in the current moment. What do you see there? Can you see yourselves ever trying to do something like that? In terms of forming a fund and going for really, hell for leather with really big investments into things, using your acumen and so on.
Yeah, I've met Masa and many of his team at several occasions during the years, and I think they're an impressive group of people, impressive bunch of people. And I think what they've done is certainly unprecedented, and it has had a big impact on the industry. We've taken a different approach, right? So as I mentioned earlier, we're not a fund. We can invest for 20 years, and I think that actually helps because it allows you to think over a very long amount of time what will be the things that create value. And food delivery, I think, could actually take a lot of time to get to its full potential. I think it's 20x from here. I think they're great investors. They are very broad in their approach. We're typically more focused, right? We invest in those areas we really know. And that also, I think, is for us the right thing to do.
But do you think you might ever try to take a page out of SoftBank's book and try to do the approach that they've done? Or do you think that's been a bad approach?
So I don't think it fits us, right? I think one of the things that has served us really well is to build up expertise, but to find things we think are interesting, build up expertise, and then go bigger, but stay in an area that you really have a good view on. And I couldn't deploy 100 billion in the things that I understand. Okay, so no plans for any funds of that kind? Unlikely.
Do you think they've done the right thing by doing it the way they've done it?
Look,
it's really come to bite them with things like WeWork, hasn't it?
It's hard to speak about their specific investments. Actually, we've co-invested in Flipkart. And there I think we had the same vision of an attractive Indian market with high growth and great founders. And that's, I think, where we overlap. There we have very much the same view. And I think they have taken a broader approach, a bigger volume approach, and I hope it works out.
Okay, we're out of time, but thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.